Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. Those of you who are watching this on the YouTube, which we've been doing now for quite a while, will have noticed a few months ago, obviously, we moved to this dramatic new world of having this big table. And this table was brought here by our kind of video guru, Jordan, who we now call Jordan the Great.
Yes, exactly.
Because Jordan brought in the round table. Jordan has been hard at work. He's essentially like kind of our IKEA specialist. And this week he has introduced a like a kind of what would you call like a shelving unit?
Yeah, something like that. Probably a bit difficult to tell with the angles that we have because you've got me at half of it and you, Adam, at the other side.
Yeah, so it's not entirely. We'll work on that. But we'll just have a look at some of the books that are on. We've got books. We've got fake. I don't know if it's fake. Yeah, they're fake. We've got fake plants there. Some of the books we got on there: Love and Addiction by Lorraine Woods. I don't know if that's an aviation. It says here, the compelling story of a devastating family legacy. We've got Putting Stories to Work, Last Stop Tokyo, The Mindful Leader. That's me, isn't it, Jake? Yep. Blue Ocean Shift. I don't know if that's about ships. Well, basically, we don't at the moment have any aviation kind of merchandise up there. If you do have any aviation merchandise you would like to send us, any books, any model planes, maybe even plane tickets as well. Yeah. Anything you want to send us.
We will display these plane tickets.
We will display them. So we will display them here.
Right next to the runner-up trophy for the Lunchtime Legends Autumn 2019 Men's Futsal Competition.
Is that actually what it is?
That's what the trophy's for. And Jordan has done all this, by the way. Yeah. Jordan has done all this in between playing, what was it, volleyball in Zimbabwe?
I think so, yeah. So he used to play the volleyball in the water. What's it called? The volleyball water thing. So apparently in a previous...
That's probably what it's called, the volleyball water thing.
The volleyball water thing. In a previous life, he was very, very good, and he was in the Champions League of water volleyball, and he used to travel all around the world getting paid, lots of money, staying in fancy hotels, etc. And he was tapped up by the Zimbabwean government, lovely people, I've no doubt, to go over there and train the next generation of beach water volley people.
The beach water volley people who play the volleyball water thing.
Anyway, so he's got back from that, and his first job was what he does every other week. He's gone to IKEA, bought some new some shelving units. But anyway, if you've got anything you want to send over...
Is there anything that man can't do, Adam?
Well, anyway, moving on. No, I'm being very cool. Jordan's in the room, so we're being horrible. We do love Jordan. He works very hard. He's very good. He's transformed our studio. Thank you very much, Jordan. Do we have any other shout? Did I even properly introduce you, Jake? Or did I
don't think so, Adam.
That's really rude,
I think
isn't
we just went straight to the shot. You value me less than a shelving unit, which is fair.
I might have to read The Mindful Leader after this and learn a bit about basic manners and respect.
what's that one?
A Love and Addiction, a memoir. This doesn't look in any way appropriate to be reading out. Oh God, this sounds like a tragic life.
And down-to-earth garden design, we've got that one too.
Have we really?
Australian gardening magazine.
I'm really into watching YouTube videos of like people cutting grass and all that. I've not got a garden or in fact any outdoor space, but I do find that quite fascinating, so I might actually steam into that. Anyway, welcome. Hello, Jake. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Adam.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Do we have any shout-outs?
Yeah, the lovely people at Central Queensland Plane Spotting. There was a story today, Tuesday, about this Alliance-operated Qantas-Link E190 that was forced to divert to Rockhampton. We noticed that Central Queensland Plane Spotting had pictures of that plane on the ground in Rockhampton. We reached out to them, asked if we could use their pictures. They said yes. So, lovely people. Thank you if you're fans of the podcast, Central Queensland Plane Spotting. We love our plane spotting community. So many great people send us photos of planes. Victor Poddy,
the podster,
the man himself, and people like Rob Finlayson, Seth Jaworski. Craig Murray, all of these lovely people keep sending us all these photos and allowing us to use their photos. And I don't think Australian aviation would be the same without the dedicated work of all of our plane spotting friends and photographers.
Yes, because one, it makes the site look really pretty, and two, it allows us also to be very accurate. We will, and we don't always get it right. We usually, 99% of the time, get it right. We will try, if we can, to use the exact same aircraft with the exact same registration if we can, and obviously, if not, the same model and variant as well. When I started off, I got into all sorts of problems with wrong variant, seating configuration. But we do try our very best. So people that take photos, you now enable us to be accurate. So thank you very much. If you are a plane spotter or do have any photos in your collection, you want to send them to us, it's always very much appreciated. Send them to media@australianaviation.com.au and breathe.
Yeah, we love our plane spotters. We love our photographers. You guys are what makes the site what it is, and whether that's a compliment is up to you.
It is what it is. Right, we got any more shout-outs? We steam into the news.
No more shout-outs that I can think of. Shout out to everyone who attended the Australian Aviation Summit and Awards again.
Oh, we already did that.
Yeah,
it's old news.
Yeah, but we love the Australian Aviation Summit and Awards, and we want to give an extra shout-out to them because they were so lovely for attending.
Yeah, but you're the sort of person where it's February and you're talking about Christmas. Christmas is just gone. Christmas is gone, mate.
But it's coming up again next year, Adam.
We're a long way away, to be fair. Look, I mean, if you want to, go on the website, find out about it, but you can't buy tickets. If you want to enter the awards, you can't. So just wait. My view on that.
Oh, actually, there is a shout out. We got to release a story from Cairns Airport about a very dedicated teen pilot, as the heading of the email said. 14-year-old Brian Waller apparently is flying a Cessna 10,000 kilometres around Australia to raise funding and awareness for Crohn's disease. Byron was diagnosed with the illness earlier this year, says Cairns Airport. He's taking to the skies in a bid to make a difference. So that's a fantastic effort. We've profiled Hayden McDonald, who was in his early 20s, and he flew a Jabiru J120 around Australia last year to educate people on neurodivergence. And so now we've got 14-year-old Byron Waller flying in a Cessna 10,000 kilometres around the country. The kids are all right, Adam.
They are. 14, that's not bad.
14 years
14.
old. Byron, if you're listening, if you're a fan of the show, we'd love to have you on and talk about your trip.
I mean, I'm 37, I can't even drive. So if you're 14 and you can fly, that's pretty good. I'd take my hat off to you. All right, then, let's steam into the news. Now, we've had a number of stories about Rex, who, as you are all, I'm sure, aware, currently in administration due to the apparent failure of their 737 capital city flights. Jake, we've had a few stories we've done on Rex in the last couple of weeks since we've been away. Start at the top. You, I do believe, outside of being a podcast host and star of stage and screen, got a fantastic exclusive about the Rex administrator kind of thwarting or stopping a plan to sell 4 active planes. Tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, this was something that we got sort of alerted to that these planes were on sale on a CL Aviation or I believe is the website or C&L, but it's this global sort of aviation firm. And these 4 planes that were actively flying regional routes, they had been listed for sale on that site. In fact, I'll just check because we asked the administrators about this, and the administrators have confirmed that those planes have been taken down. Now, we're looking at the C&L Aviation Group website now. Those planes are still on the website, so I don't know when they're going to be, actually removed from the website. Yeah. But they are. The administrator informed us that they have. That they are no longer for sale. So that was a bit of an odd story.
It was right. So this is, you're not giving yourself enough credit here. It's a brilliant scoop, by the way. Absolutely excellent journalism from Jake here. So the kind of context of this is that Rex, before they went into administration, have been talking a lot about the problems they've had with getting aircraft parts and getting labour and kind of supply chain problems that have been caused by that kind of post-COVID hangover. And what that meant is that they had to effectively stop or reduce the frequency a lot of their most popular regional routes. So to find out that kind of active aircraft are being put up for sale, which to me seems absolutely extraordinary, because they've also got a lot of aircraft that are grounded at the moment. They're smaller Saabs, so obviously you would imagine you'd sell the ones on the ground, not the ones in the air. So on the one hand, they've been saying, we just can't get hold of planes. On the other hand, they're trying to sell the active planes that they have. Now, this would suggest, and obviously we don't know for sure, but it would suggest that perhaps Rex were maybe in more financial trouble than that they were letting on, or that we knew about, because I don't know why else you would sell those aircraft.
Well, these were listed for sale before they entered administration. VHRXE, VHZLX, VHZJS, and VHZRH. All of them have been, actively flying, as we said. Currently, Rex has around 57 Saab 340Bs, and they're getting up in years. Average age of 30.2 years, which is almost as old as I am. 34 in active service. When we checked, the rest were parked. So yes, very odd that they were looking to sell planes that were flying, as you said, rather than on the ground. C&L, as an aside, only semi-related. Also selling a bunch of 737 parts that Rex no longer needs. That's more understandable, because they're not going to be using the 737, so they don't need the parts. So there's more than 100,000 737 NG parts that are being sold by C&L on behalf of EY. But the Saab story, very, very odd. Speaking of Rex, Saabs, and oddities. There was a lawsuit that was filed in the New South Wales Supreme Court, and we're going to be, on the advice of our lawyers, we're going to be very, very careful about what we say here. But this lawsuit has alleged that Rex was stealing planes from an aircraft boneyard in Kingman, Arizona. So according to this American leasing and maintenance firm, Jet Midwest, they allege that Rex agreed to buy these 4 planes for $2 million in 2019, paid a $200,000 deposit. Jet Midwest says that Rex asked for more time to pay the rest due to COVID-19 causing a loss of earnings. But then they have claimed that Rex had not made a payment by June 2020, voiding the contract, and yet they supposedly, again, allegedly, being very careful here because this is, this is in lawyer territory. Allegedly, Rex took possession of and disassembled the planes anyway in October 2020. So the allegation is that they have stripped these 4 planes for parts, including engines and propellers, and scrapped the airplanes despite not actually having paid them off. This was reported in the Fin Review. The court filings claim that Rex told the spare parts provider 340 Aviation Services to cut the wings off the airframes and scrap the airplanes frames, took some of the profits. Jet Midwest now suing Rex for around 10.8 million Australian dollars plus legal costs.
It's extraordinary. This is extraordinary. And as Jake keeps saying, we do not know what the actual truth or not of this is, because this is, going through the court process. Nonetheless, it's just gobsmacking stuff. Whether it's true or not, it's this story did very well in terms of views on our website. Quite something. It also does reiterate as well the kind of the chaos of those COVID periods too. as well. Right, so have we got one more?
There was another Rex story.
We'll get to this one.
So this was a story that came out of BITRE data. We spotted it in the Australian. Fantastic aviation writer Robin Ironside. She had noticed this. They've also noticed this in the AFR. But we sort of had a look at the BITRE data ourselves.
So this is the BITRE data is from a Department of Transport.
From the Department of Transport. Now, apparently, domestic airfares since Rex axed its jet services, so from July, when Rex was still flying, up to September, when obviously they're not flying domestically, on July 2003 levels, from the data, it looks like these domestic airfares have gone up by more than 10
which is a very
points.
big leap. So when you actually look at the kind of the graph, it goes up very steeply. So obviously month to month you do get a little bit of variation. You get seasonal variation as well.
And in fairness, it is school holidays coming up. You've got grand final season coming up. You would expect airfares to increase at that time as well. But it's been, as you say, a pretty sharp increase on the graph. The best discount fare, which basically measures sale prices, again on these July 2003 index levels, 12.5 percentage points higher. Restricted economy, which is your normal sort of economy seats, up 12.3 percentage points. Now, best discount fares, they go up and down all the time because airlines are always having sales or not. The restricted economy is sort of less volatile.
Yeah, that's basically, and I'm simplifying it, that's your main gauge of ticket prices. You've got your business, you've got your cheap sale tickets. This is your bog standard economy normal tickets.
Yeah. So those prices, since Rex dropped its domestic jet services, have gone up. How much of that we can attribute to, the end of Rex's domestic services, and how much we can attribute to seasonal factors, we can't really say for certain.
But let's give ourselves some credit here. When you look at it, it is a very substantial rise.
It is.
That coincides almost exactly with Rex pulling out of those routes. Again, you will never know for certain, because the only way you would know for certain is if you're in the mind of their rivals or the algorithm or whatever it is. But you would look at that and say it's fairly damning evidence as well. And I was going to go on.
Yeah, just noting, this is as I mentioned in the story, this is a very different story, at least, in terms of competition from February, because in February, Rex and Bonza were also both flying those domestic services. Now it's just Qantas Group, so Qantas Jetstar and Virgin Australia that are operating. But back in February, we had, for the first time ever, 4 different airline groups operating the same route, which was Melbourne to Gold Coast. And so, that was the first time ever. And, we had data from the Competition Task Force from the federal government in January that showed that adding more competitors on a route could slash airfares. As a reminder, if you were not familiar with those figures, you had airfares averaging 39.6 cents per kilometre on routes with one carrier, 28.2 cents on routes that had 2 carriers, and 19.2 cents on routes with 3 carriers. Dr. Andrew Lee, at the time, the Assistant Minister for Competition, said, in other words, that the price per kilometre is halved when 3 competitors fly a route compared with a situation when there was only a single monopoly airline. With 4 or 5 competitors, the price drops further still. So so more airlines flying the same route is good for airfares. We have seen that.
So we've seen the data that's supporting it. We've seen the ACCC kind of, talking openly about competition is a good thing. Surely nobody should have a problem with this outstanding piece of journalism, Jake. Surely not.
Surely they wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
There have been some critics.
Whoa!
There have been some critics.
Who, Jake? Who are these people?
There's some analysts.
Oh dear.
Some analysts who, to be fair, they seem to know what they're talking about because we've checked out their website. It has a lot of graphs.
It has a lot of graphs.
We do, and we like graphs here. Who have been saying that our story is perhaps.
What were the words they used? we see what we're getting here. This is they've not been very nice. What are the words they use?
Well,
Jake?
I don't want to be saying such horrible things on it, but they have criticised our story. And if they're listening to our podcast, I would like to say to them, we do try our best to get things right,
and we've got it right in this instance.
We always strive for accuracy in our reporting. We try to get our facts straight. We try. We're not aviation analysts. We are journalists. We, as we said, can't tell how much of this increase in prices came from Rex dropping the routes versus normal seasonal factors. But we do try to present as an accurate affront as possible.
Now, Jake is very, very professional and always, rising in criticism. I'm not such a nice person. Now, I would say we get criticism all the time. These people do seem like they know what they're talking about. They've been particularly vicious in their criticism. They basically said this story is a load of nonsense. What they've said, their argument essentially is if you go back pre-COVID, which is fair enough, and you look over the last 20 years, like on average, you would expect to see a little bit of a rise around that time. But when you look at the last couple of years post-COVID, you've not seen a rise anywhere near like as big as that. And if you go back into the few years pre-COVID, you've also not seen a rise as steep as that. Now, obviously, with numbers, you can prove anything with numbers. You can use any numbers to argue whatever. But I do think this is very, very, very significant. It's gone up pretty substantially. I also think, we've had we had 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, the white paper published, which again was looking at aviation competition. We've had all sorts of rows about, which we won't go into fully, about whether Qantas should be broken up or not. But to me, it does seem extraordinary. We've seen such a big leap in prices, right as we've lost, now our second competitor. Common sense would say the more airlines you've got flying, the better it is for consumers. And particularly, whether there's been an overall trend, you can argue all you want. But when you look at individual routes, you do see quick and dramatic changes when somebody comes online. That's something the ACCC has talked about.
This has been one of the key arguments for internationally as well for Qatar being allowed to operate more flights. Because, the argument last year, if you recall, was that, allowing Qatar in to, do more flights to Doha and, from there, connecting through Doha to, Europe or wherever else. The argument for allowing Qatar in was it will increase competition, it will increase capacity into Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth. It will bring down airfares, which have been pretty high internationally. And so, we've seen, there's been plenty of arguments and, we've seen the figures that show that more competition brings down airfares. But look, as I said, we're not analysts. These guys, they know what they're talking about. They have graphs. We love graphs. We love graphs.
Dude, there was a database.
Yeah, we love graphs. If aviation analysts want to, assist us, if they want to
make love, not war.
Yeah, if aviation analysts want to help us out, if they want to lend us their expertise,
we're extending the
olive branch. We're extending the olive branch. So if you're listening to this podcast, we want to be, and we hope to be, the most authoritative, and accurate source for aviation journalism in Australia. And if you feel we are falling short of that, we welcome assistance.
Right, yeah, you're being much nicer than I am. Okay, welcome back. So prior to recording this, we were away for a couple of weeks from our regular show. Jake, what should we talk about next? What's next on the news agenda?
Well, something that sort of flew a little bit under the radar in the mainstream media, but that's why you have us.
That's exactly.
Is this news that came out of the Kappa Leaders Summit in Brisbane and has since been sort of confirmed by Virgin Australia. Virgin, as we know, has a pretty substantial backlog of the 737 MAX family. They had an order of 14 MAX 8s and 25 MAX 10s. Now, the MAX 10s still have not received certification in America, so those are a long way off. And Virgin, in the interest of getting more planes now and sort of shoring up its supply chain or its supply line for its fleet renewal program, has converted 12 of its MAX 10 orders into MAX 8s. So it's like, we would rather have the MAX 8s now than have we would rather have smaller MAX 8s now than more larger MAX 10s at some point.
Yeah, so the kind of the background is this is all a kind of a messy, tangled web of both supply chain issues globally that are affecting everyone and the kind of Boeing-specific problems. We won't go in too much, about what happened with the MAX earlier this year, where the door plug flew off. This incident caused the FAA, I think it was them, to actually put a cap on the amount of MAXs that were able to be produced. I think that cap is still there. The MAX 10 is a separate aircraft which has not actually been certified, but clearly you would imagine all the kerfuffle with the MAX 9 is, almost likely delaying this as well. So Virgin have come to this decision that, like you said there, it's better just to get some planes in than necessarily get exactly what we want. But that does reinforce how this is being such a big issue for the whole global aviation industry. It does feel quite incredible that they would, understandable totally from Virgin's point of view, but quite incredible that they're effectively going to go for something that's not quite as good just because they need to get planes.
Yeah, it's and we've seen more signs that Virgin really needs the planes. If you remember when Rex went into administration, Virgin made moves to take over the leases of 3 of those former Rex 737-800s. And going back to Bonza again, one of the reasons that Bonza went under was because it just did not have enough planes. It did not have enough planes, and so it could not, service all of it. It was running its planes ragged, basically.
And also you had Virgin, when Rex went into administration, I think it was 3 of the leases of Rex's.
Yeah, that's what I just mentioned. Yeah.
So we've had those taken over as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's this global struggle to get hold of any aircraft whatsoever.
Now, that of course, Virgin is, making other moves towards fleet renewal. Last month, again, it announced that it was replacing these 4 remaining Fokker 100s in its regional fleet with new Embraer E190 E2s, which leads us, Adam, into our next story.
This is nice.
Because I spoke with, for an upcoming Australian Aviation podcast, look out for that on the website, probably going to be a regional a premium podcast. But I spoke with Raul Villaron, who is basically the head of Asia Pacific for Embraer, for an upcoming podcast. And he said something interesting. He said that by the end of the decade, there could be as many as 200 E-jets in Australia, flying Australian routes. Now, this is counting
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And that's counting the E-jet E1s and the E-jet E2s. So more than 200 E-jets in Australia by 2030. Now, at the moment, there's about 60 E-jets in Australia, most of which are operated by Alliance. Alliance has been, embarking on this big fleet expansion program for the E190 E1. And then you've got, of course, again, Virgin Australia ordering these 8 E2s. But, Raul Villaron said to me, he said, Australia is top 5 worldwide for Embraer in terms of fleet size per country. He said it's an important market in Australia. He says that 200 is a conservative number by the end of the decade. He says he says they'll have more than 200 aircraft before 2030. And this would be not just the traditional FIFO market, which is where you usually see the E190s, people like Alliance and National Jet Express are flying these E190s, but regular passenger transport as well. He said, and I'll quote him here, he said, when you look at the market demand and the need for connectivity, need for frequencies, there is a need of right-sizing in Australia. Lots of aircraft flying with low load factors, lots of underserved markets, secondary markets that only have 1 flight a day or even less, 3 per week. He said, we see there that Embraer could play a role in helping smaller cities in Australia to be connected to the main hubs, to be well served by aviation. He said, I think in the end, the RPT market could be bigger than the FIFO market, but it needs a change in the way the hubs are fed and the way that the airlines operate with more frequencies and more connectivity. He also said that he told us that he believed that Bonza would actually have done better with E-Jet E2s than it would have with the MAX 8s because what he basically told us was that the E-Jet E2 has around the same per-seat cost as the 737 MAX 8. So, the efficiencies have got... Because normally with smaller planes, the per-seat cost is higher. Than with bigger planes. But he said that with the efficiencies of the E-Jet E2s, there's the same per seat cost as the MAX 8, while also being easier to fill. So what he said was, and I'm going to quote him again here, he said, "I think they would have had a much better chance to grow," this is Bonza, "and be efficient and make money if they had the E2, for example, 100 to 120 seat aircraft. They could have improved a little bit on the yields, had better loads, and grown their presence." He said, "For this type of operation, the E195 E2 would be perfect to address those markets." And that's what we've been saying, Adam.
So we don't actually know anything for certain, but when I wrote a feature for the Australian Aviation magazine, which is out now. I'm kind of updating it a little bit before I put it on the web because a few things have happened in the last couple of months. But when you look back at the history of Bonza, Tim Jordan came up with the idea, I think it would have been now 14, 15 years ago, is when he first kind of dreamt up this idea. Obviously, he managed to get the investment a few years ago to launch it. But apparently there was a document doing the rounds that Tim had kind of put forward to potential investors outlining his initial vision for what Bonza would be. And this document essentially was suggesting having aircraft that could, hold between sort of 70, 100 people. It was looking at those kind of ATR markets. So not too far off, or pretty much the same as what the E-Jets would do. That was the Bonza vision. And then Bonza ended up getting lumped with aircraft that effectively got twice as many people, which puts an awful lot more pressure on you. Now, when Tim Jordan was talking about why they were using the Maxes, and he was obviously kind of bigging them up, he was saying, he was talking about that level of fuel efficiency. But if you've got this new generation of E-Jets, which are effectively as fuel efficient, you do make as much money out of them, then you would look at that and say Bonza were mad to use those larger aircraft, and that Bonza would have, like he said there, would have had a much, much, much better chance. I would not be surprised if somebody somewhere did not come in with some E-Jets and try and redo what Bonza has done. I wouldn't even be surprised if you're Tim Jordan, who I imagine is probably in a very difficult place at the moment after all that happened. But why wouldn't you want to go again? Because the idea, we say this every other week, the idea was working because people were buying tickets, people were having good experiences. You just think if they'd have had 10 E-Jets, you really could see that working.
Yeah. And, well, we've got regular passenger transport in Australia with E-Jets right now. I mean, Qantas is hiring these Alliance E-Jets. Again, you've got Virgin, bringing in the E2s. Air North is flying E-Jets, smaller ones. They've got like I think the E170 or E175. They're flying. They're wet leasing a couple of planes from Alliance as well, I believe. But, we've got E-Jets serving regional routes in Australia right now. And we were saying, early, before Bonza went under, some of these routes, like they ditched, last year they axed services to Coffs Harbour, right? This was in their, first big route reshuffle where they slashed a bunch of routes. They cut Coffs Harbour out of their network map entirely. Coffs Harbour would be a market you would have to think that would be better served by E-Jets than by 737 Maxes. It's these thinner routes where they... Now, some of these routes, they were filling the MAX 8s. Some of these routes, they were filling the MAX 8s. But on those smaller routes where you weren't getting the load factors that you needed, where they weren't getting these load factors, when they had planes that were half empty, those would have been better served by E-Jets. I also asked Raul Villaron, by the way, about JetGo, which you might recall was this airline, back in the mid-2010s that, tried a similar kind of thing using these older ERJs. Yeah. He basically said, those planes are older, less efficient. They also they had smaller sizes. They smaller capacity. So basically, what he was saying was that the JetGo's ERJs were too small and too inefficient. Bonza's MAX 8s were too big. The E-Jet E2s, the E190s to E195s, that's about the right size. I mean, of course he would say that because he's selling E-jets, but surely no one is better placed to know the capabilities of the E-jet than the people who make them.
All I can think of in my head is the amount of times you've basically insinuated that a place would be better served with idiots because E-jets, like it's like, I'm talking in Irish. So you're like, Coft Harbour, they need to get some more E-jets. We need to get more E-jets everywhere. That is why the people.
I mean, Adam, if you look at the state of politics in this country, you'll find that most of Australia is served by E-jets.
Yeah. This is why those horrible people on social media say we don't know what we're talking about. Because this is the level of analysis you're getting here.
But we did also very, very briefly have wrecks using E-jets. Using E190s.
They use their FIFO.
These National Jet Express ones. To do that Perth to Adelaide route, which seems about the right size. Two smaller capitals. That the E190 seem about the right size. I'm not a network planner, but smaller, thinner routes, especially these regional services, I think could do with more regional jets.
Okay, welcome back. So, what are we going to talk about next, Jake? Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. That's a risky one. It's going
to be aviation related.
That's true. We were talking about fleet renewals and fleet sizes. How about we talk a bit about what Jetstar thinks that its new planes could be doing for it?
I think we should be talking about what Jetstar think the new planes could be doing for it. Go on.
Now, these are not new planes for Jetstar, but they are being refitted, the 787-8s.
Yeah.
They've had these for a while. They're getting a cabin overhaul, changing around the number of seats, taking out these heavy, in-seat entertainment systems. And what Stephanie Tully has told news.com.au a week or two ago was that this fleet renewal program that Jetstar has going on could unlock new international markets. So she said, he's got these new aircraft coming in, and the smaller aircraft, these A321 Neos, can go further, which is freeing up the Dreamliners. And she's saying that the 787s will be able to fly further than they can now. So places like, she suggested, Las Vegas and Cape Town might not be out of reach for Jetstar. Now, she stressed that's not her announcing them. That's just saying they could be on the table. Of all the places in America, you'd think that Las Vegas would make the most sense for Jetstar, wouldn't you?
Market-wise. I am not going to follow
leisure
that
travel.
up.
Leisure travel,
You are
Adam.
insinuating that the decent people that get a Jetstar flight might be the sort of people that want to spend hours and hours and hours in the dark room.
The entertainment capital of the world.
Yeah.
They are. Jetstar, mainly serves the leisure market. But Jetstar, Las Vegas would make sense as a destination for Jetstar. I think that they already do they fly to Hawaii already? I don't recall. I'm pretty sure they have in the past. But these leisure destinations like Las Vegas would be good markets for Jetstar if they can get their 787-8s to go that far. It's a big growth phase. She's sort of highlighted there. Stephanie Tully.
I'm just googling it now. Solid reporter that I am. A flight from Las Vegas to Australia. There are no direct flights.
Yeah, you kind of have to
connect.
When I went to Las Vegas, a few years ago, I think I flew United connecting through LAX.
Okay. Why'd you go to Las Vegas?
I went for in my previous life as a printing and packaging journalist, which might be why a lot of people have found so many things to criticize about my aviation reporting.
So you're telling me Las Vegas is like a mecca for the printing and packaging industry?
Las Vegas is a mecca for the convention industry,
right?
For the conference industry. So this company EFI, they do like wide format printers and they do printing software and all these things. They had their EFI Connect conference in Las Vegas, and that's what I went to.
Right. It does sound to me like in the printing world, which, and no disrespect to anybody that works in the printing world, may be a slightly drier thing to do. They thought, you know what, let's just do it in Vegas.
Well, it is mostly paper, Adam. That tends to be. If it's wet, that's not good for the paper. This is the sort of insights you get from a printing journalist. But yeah, so when I went to Las Vegas, I connected through LAX. But yeah, leisure destinations. Being an airline that flew directly from Australia to Las Vegas, you'd have to think that there was a market there.
Yeah, so at the moment we're looking at...
Particularly low cost.
Yeah, the quickest flight I can see here is around 17 hours, can go up to about 20 hours. So it's a long, long way. It does make sense. And also it's not entirely kind of long-range flights on budget airlines. I mean, Scoot effectively do this, and everyone kind of mocks that they don't necessarily have a TV in the seat. But it doesn't really matter nowadays, is it? In a world where you can bring your own iPad, does it really make that much of a difference? I don't think it does. It's really interesting. It's also really interesting to see how ambitious she is as well in terms of what you can do. It does make absolute sense, particularly if they've got the aircraft there. She
said as well, by the way, Bali and Japan, Jetstar's two biggest international markets following the pandemic. She said if we could fly more to Bali, we would. Australians love going to Bali, she says. She's also said that the low cost of the yen has attracted Australians to Japan, especially during ski season. They're expecting a really busy December to March. She said, this is a quote, "I'd love to be able to fly directly into Sapporo rather than go via Narita, and there's other places. I think Korea's ripe for more growth. Australians are loving going to Korea, which has really become a new sort of spot to go." So potential big expansion of the map for Jetstar on the cards. We'll be interested to see what they come up with.
Right, what's next, Jake? We've probably got time for one or two more.
Well, I think next we should mention how about we love airport infrastructure. We love airport infrastructure.
There's only one thing I love more than an aircraft, and it's an airport. There's only one thing I love more than an airport. It's the infrastructure that serves the airport. Because that's like when you're getting excited. It's like Christmas Eve. You're on that motorway going to the airport, and you're like, at some point I'll be in an airport.
You're on the motorway going to the airport on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, exactly. It's extraordinary. Go on.
But we've got a couple of sort of big infrastructure announcements. Big one from Melbourne Airport. Third runway has been greenlit. So the government has signed off on that. Now, this has been, kind of delayed and, kicked around for a while. Melbourne is saying that it needs this third runway for simultaneous takeoff and landings, to boost capacity, reduce delays. So this is going to be a 3,000-meter runway opening in 2031. It'll be 1.3 kilometers to the west in parallel of the existing north-south runway. Excuse me. Now, Federal Transport Minister Catherine King, in order to address the concerns of nearby residents about the purring of the sky kittens that will be using this new runway, she said she's imposed the most comprehensive set of conditions for a project of that type. So she said, so these are going to include restoring the length of the east-west runway for purring sharing, design and implementation of a purring sharing and airspace plan, a purring amelioration program for affected communities, and conducting a community health study into purring impacts both before and after the runway's construction. She says, quote, "My decision to require that the airport maintain sufficient capacity on the existing east-west runway is to support effective noise sharing at Melbourne Airport so that no one community bears the brunt of the airport's growth. The noise sharing plan will be developed by the airport and in consultation with local communities over the years to come." And a friend of the show, friend of Australian aviation, Dr. Crystal Zhang, she's an aviation expert at RMIT. She's basically said that they need this third runway in spite of these concerns about sky kitten purring. The sky kitten purring part is our words, of course. But she basically said, this is a quote from her. I spoke to her, by the way, for our ultra long haul travel feature in the new issue of Australian Aviation Magazine, which is up on the website now. Also spoke to her, I think, in the last issue about Boeing. But she said, quote, "A third runway will enhance Melbourne Airport's operational capacity and help minimise flight delays. It will accommodate more traffic, improve the passenger travel experience, and reduce airline operational cost." She said, "An impact on surrounding suburbs suburbs is inevitable, but the airport is exploring noise impacts and will continue to monitor noise levels across the next 2 decades to attend to the community's needs. She has noted that it is encouraging that the airport will consult on the runway orientation length as well as the flight path design. So this has been a long time coming. It's slated to open now in 2031, and that should hopefully take a bit of the pressure off of Melbourne Airport and open up new capacity and new seats. Hopefully we can see more flights as well going into and out of Avalon.
Yeah, so we've got 3 runways, no train station as yet.
No, not as yet.
Not as yet, no. Well, they love planes, they hate trains. And that rhymed. I didn't even know that. That was,
you're a poet, Adam. We've also,
I'm an Egypt.
On the subject of airport infrastructure, we've also seen these plans from Brisbane Airport for the renovation of its international terminal. So this is part of the $5 billion transformation program, the most significant changes to the international terminal in its 29 years of operation. So they're going to relocate the security and passport control from level 3, where it is now, to what they call a light-filled atrium on level 4. That's nice. You love a light-filled atrium, especially when you're waiting in line for passport control. They're going to enhance their security screening equipment, install self-service check-in and bag drops, upgrade their baggage systems, expand their retail offerings, double the size of the duty-free area. So if you like duty-free shopping, that's what you'll see at Brisbane. There's videos and renders up on their YouTube channel and on their website. They're going to be phasing the construction to minimise the disruption. So
why would you ever leave the airport when the terminal's going to be that good? You wouldn't, would you?
Probably need to sleep at some point.
Yeah.
But works are expected to be completed on that by 2027. So check out the Brisbane Airport YouTube channel if you want to see the renders of that one.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Right, we've got time for maybe one more story.
Oh, let's talk about Turkish Airlines, Adam.
Let's talk about Turkish Airlines.
Let's talk about Turkish Airlines.
What have they done now? What have they done now?
Turkish Airlines, and you may recall a couple of weeks ago we had a story about Junyao Airlines, the Shanghai-based carrier, where Melbourne had announced it would be the first international. The first destination for Junyao Airlines, only for Sydney to come in and swoop and take that crown for first Australian destination for Junyao by 2 days. But
Classic
Turkish Airlines,
rude Sydney-siders gone.
Yeah, Turkish Airlines has chosen Sydney as its second Australian destination. It will start on 5th of December. So timing-wise, Melbourne has already started Turkish Airlines flights. But Sydney will be the biggest Australian port for Turkish Airlines. These flights will go to Istanbul via Kuala Lumpur on the A350-900. It will be going 4 times per week as opposed to 3 times per week to Melbourne via Singapore. It will also be so the airport has said, the first Australian destination to see non-stop Istanbul services, which are expected in 2026 when Turkish gets its new A350-1000s, which will be capable of flying non-stop from Istanbul to the East Coast. Sydney Airport currently hosts, according to the figures, 38% of European air traffic into Australia. With the arrival of Turkish Airlines, it will be the only Australian airport to host 2 European carriers at the same time. The other, of course, being...
Hang on a minute. Say this again. I don't like you putting me on the spot here. This is savage.
Sydney will be the only Australian airport to host 2 European carriers at the same time. Adam, what's the other? The other European carrier.
Well, British Airways.
Exactly.
I thought that was a trick question.
No,
and I'm
it's
going
British
for
Airways.
me. He's going
the other
for
being
me.
British Airways.
He's done me now. Credibility's gone.
So that's a big win for Sydney Airport. Turkish Airways opening up as well as another route into Europe, an alternative to Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Doha. And you have to think that'll be good for European airfares.
You would like to think so.
A minor footnote, by the way, speaking of Abu Dhabi, Etihad also boosting its Sydney services starting mid next year. They will be going from daily services to 10 flights per week, which will make Sydney the largest international airport for Etihad in Australia. Again, beating Melbourne. Melbourne's going to be getting an 8th weekly flight in I think, March next year. But Sydney coming in again.
Yeah,
mid-year,
you're cocky now,
up to
but
10.
you're cocky now. But when they get their third runway, we'll see how you like it, guys. We'll see how you like it with our nice new train service. It's coming, our flashy new runway. So enjoy it while it lasts, guys.
We love the fine people at Melbourne Airport. I'm going there later this year, so please do not pelt me with eggs when I get off the plane.
No, right. That is probably all we've got time for. Jake, what's the latest on your musical? What's going on with this?
Tickets are on sale.
They are on sale.
They're on sale
for tickets.
They're on sale for Strictly Ballroom at Hills Musical Theatre Company. That will be at Model Farms High School from the 8th to the 16th of November. We are doing 6 shows. If you're a fan of Baz Luhrmann, then come down and catch a performance of Strictly Ballroom. There will be, we promise, there will be no new steps.
You can go on the website. Apparently, you can buy tickets. It's the second best event of the year after the Australian Aviation Summit and Awards. Maybe it's the third best event of the year. Still pretty good, though. Right, okay.
It's a matter for debate.
Yeah, it's a matter. All right. Anyway, that is all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much to... I didn't introduce you. I wasn't even going to say goodbye then. Just how rude am I?
I'm
terrible,
feeling so undervalued.
Yeah.
You need to read that leadership book.
Wow. Right, I will say goodbye to you, Jake. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Adam.
And we will be back on the show the same time next week. But from now, from us, goodbye again.
See ya.